This is the Year 7 sample materials for the procedural numeracy tests. Question 1. 1.25 plus blank equals 2. Well, 1.25 is somewhere between 1 and 2 to begin with, so we know the number we're going to need to add on has to be 0 point something. Now, the 0.25 part of our first number, that means 25 hundredths. So in order to make that extra whole number that we need the hundredths part to have a total of 100 hundredths. So the two digits we're missing from our final answer is 7 and 5, making then the 100 hundredths. And that's part 1 finished. Part 2, blank plus 0.305 equals 1 whole. So again, this answer is going to be 0 point something. Now, the trick here is to make the 3 decimal places that we have add up to, in this case, 1,000 thousandths. So what the little neat trick here is if we look at our first number after the point, which is a 3, then if we make our first digit of our answer make a 6, that makes 9. Then our second digit is a 0, so we want the sum of the digits to be 9. So if we make that a 9, and the final digit here in our original number is a 5, and what we want is to make our number now up to 10, and that is the little trick that works for this one. Question 2. Round 12.7638 to 1 decimal places. Now, that means the final answer should only have one digit after the decimal place. So we're going to cut our number off at a certain place, and that is after the first decimal digit. So our answer might stay as 12.7, or it may go up to become 12.8. The digit that tells us whether we do this or not is the first digit after the cutoff point, which is a 6. Now, because that is bigger than a 5, it rounds up to 12.7 to 12.8. The final question on the first page is estimate the total of this amount. So what we have here is we have 4 prices in pounds and pence. So what I would do here is I would round each of these to the nearest pound. So £2.49 is closest to £2. £6.3 is closest to £6. £5.56 is just over £5.50, therefore it is slightly closer to £6. And the last one, £8.97, is closest to £9, giving us a grand total of, when we add them up, £23. So that is my estimate. Question 4. Sort 12, 9, 2 and 16 into this Venn diagram. So let's do these one at a time. Well, the number 2 does not belong in the multiples of 4, which is the 4 times table answers. It doesn't belong in the multiples of 3, which are the 3 times table answers. Therefore, the number 2 will be written somewhere within the rectangle but outside the circles. Now, the number 9 is definitely in the 3 times table, so it is a multiple of 3. So that goes inside this circle on the right. Now, the number 12 is an interesting one. The number 12 is a multiple of 3 and a multiple of 4, because it's in both times tables. Therefore, that goes in the overlap part in the middle of the diagram. The final number 16 is only in the 4 times table, so it goes in the multiple of 4 part of the diagram. Question 5. Write 100 less than 2,000 in figures. So, if we count 100 back from 2,000, we are left with 1,900. The next part asks us to write 3 million in figures. Now this would be a number 3, followed by 6 zeros. Question 6. Now, this is an order of operations question. So what we need to use here is we need to remember the word BIDMAS, which stands for brackets, indices, and then the last 4, which apply to this question, are division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So whenever we're confronted with a calculation that has a number of different operations in it, we must do them in this order. Division comes before multiplication, which comes before addition, finally before subtraction. So when I take a look at this calculation, what I see is I've got a multiplication part to it. So this is the part that is calculated first. So I would do 9 add 5 minus 12. Now, at this point, we have a plus and a minus in the calculation. So what we can do here is we can do these with the addition first. 9 and 5 is 14. And finally take away 12, giving me a grand total of 2. Question 7, part 1. Write 1 4/5 as a decimal. Now, one of the simpler ways of doing this is to actually convert this, first of all, into an equivalent fraction. So this can be written as 1 whole, and if I double both parts of 4/5, I would have 8/10. Now, if you know your place value and your column names, you will know that the column immediately after the units is the tenths, so this answer would be 1.8. Now the second part of this, write 0.3 recurring, that's what the little dot means above the 3, as a fraction. Now you may have come across this type of decimal before when you've been doing calculations, and the 3's continue forever. Now, a classic mistake in this one is people put 3/10 because they see the 3 in the tenths column, but actually this is the well-known fraction that is 1/3. The final part of this one says write 3/5 as a percentage. Now, I would adopt a similar strategy to part 1 here. I would first of all turn my 3/5 into an equivalent fraction by doubling both parts, making it 6/10. Now my next step would be to try and turn it into a fraction with 100 on the bottom. And this can be done easily by taking the middle fraction and timesing the top and the bottom by 10. And we would turn this fraction into 60 out of 100. And as percent means out of 100, this would be 60%. Question 8. We have a rectangle of length 8 and width 3. First question is, what is the area? Now the area of a rectangle is found using the formula length times width. So we would need to do 8 times 3, which gives us 24. And don't forget your units, which are centimetres squared. The follow-up question is, what is the perimeter? Now the perimeter is the distance around the outside of the circle, the outside of the rectangle. So, what we've got to remember to do in this situation is not just adding up the two sides that are labelled. You must remember to include the other two sides as well. Now, if we add all those up, it comes to a grand total of 22 centimetres. Question 9. Find 2% of 1,700. Now, what I would do here is my first calculation would be I would find 10%. And 10% would be dividing by 10, so that would make £170. Now from here it's very easy to work out 1%, because I simply divide my 10% answer by 10 again. So that would make it £17. Now the question I've been given, which is 2%, would be 2 lots of my 1% answer, which would be £34. Question 10. Scores in the game are 20, 22, 16, 27, 19 and 16. What is the range? Well, the range is the difference between the largest and smallest numbers in this data set. So when we scan through the list, the largest number is 27 and the smallest number is 16, and we subtract those to give us a range of 11. Question 11. 15 times 0.5. Now, what I would do here is I would ignore the decimal point to begin with and work out 15 times 5. Now, 15 times 5 would be 10 fives plus 5 fives. And 10 fives are 50, 5 fives are 25, giving me a grand total of 75. And then finally, what I do is put the decimal place back in, point back in, and as my 0.5 had one decimal place, my answer must also have one decimal place. So the answer is 7.5. A very similar strategy for the second one. I'm going to ignore the decimal points to begin with and multiply 4 by 3, giving me 12. When I look at my numbers in this question though, there are 2 digits in total after the decimal point. So my decimal point must go in 2 places from the end, giving me a 2 decimal place number. So the answer is 0.12. Question 12. 224 divided by 14. So what I would do here is I would first of all write down the first 4 or 5 answers to the 14 times table, because I don't know it off by heart. So I would say 14, 28, 42, 56, 70. So I got the first 5 answers there. Now, I'm going to do this using the traditional bus stop method, but I am going to do it using a short division technique. I'm going to ask myself first of all, how many 14s go into the first digit? 2. Well, it's none. So then I carry the 2. How many 14s go into my 22? Well, only one 14 fits into 22, with a remainder of 8. Now, how many 14s go into 84? Well, it's funny, I actually stopped at the 5th answer. If I'd gone to one more answer here, it would have actually given me 84 in the times table I was writing out. So the answer is, it's the 6th answer. So it goes in 16 times.